Hello, welcome to another rendition of Get Fit with Jodelle meets Muscles and Veggies. It's a brother-sister team here to tell you all the ins and outs of health, wellness, nutrition, and just to give you real-life solutions to real-life problems that are going on. And today, Zachary and I are here to talk about insulin, namely insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. So just to briefly give you a rundown on my bro here. He is a certified personal trainer with the ACSM. He's a life coach. He's a weight management specialist and a CrossFit coach. And specifically, Zach, you like to specialize in low-carb ketogenic dieting with an approach to, you use this approach, I guess, to combat and even reverse type 2 diabetes, which I myself advocate. So I'm glad that it's been so fun just you and I being on the same page ever since we both got into nutrition, sharing this passion that we have together. And I'm so glad we've united on this social media platform to get the word out. So today, insulin. So tell me a little bit about what inspires you when it comes to, if you get a client that comes along and they do have insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, like what's your passion behind that?
So basically, a few years back, I thought that I was in the realm of eating what I called a healthy diet. And, I woke up in the morning, I had my oatmeal, I had my apple, I had my nut butter, and my protein shake. And by the end of that morning, I would be starving. And I mean, absolutely starving. I would have to stop work, stop what I was doing, and go eat part of the lunch I had packed because I could not function and couldn't move forward with my day without having that. Then I would actually eat lunch, and in the mid-afternoon, I would have this horrible crash. And I mean like lethargy, shuffling my feet across the building, like had to take a nap or I had to drink a Red Bull, one or the other.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, man, what is going on? I know something is off. So lo and behold, I looked into some symptomatic things and found that I had some signs of insulin resistance and some high insulin problems. And so that's how I dove into the research. I wanted to learn about it. I wanted to learn how did blood sugar interact with insulin and in the body and how those mechanisms worked and the problems that I was having. And through that, I figured out how to have energy all day. I figured out how to be very insulin sensitive, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And so that's how I got passionate about this topic of insulin.
Well, I can relate because, as you know, being in the bodybuilding industry or working in the gym mentality for a long time where, you go through Body for Life or any of these top fad diets that go along with bodybuilding, it's not just, overweight people or obese people that are dealing with insulin resistance. Some of our top athletes, our top bodybuilders actually are getting leaner and developing insulin resistance at the same time. These low fat diets of just eating small amounts throughout the day, very, very non-fat, actually have been shown to produce insulin resistance in these athletes. And I was one of these people. I feel like there was a time in my life as well where I developed insulin resistance based on the fad diets I was doing. And thankfully, through proper nutrition, I've been able to correct that. But how common do you think it is today, not just in overweight and obese, but actually in mainstream, humanity?
Well, actually, the CDC has some really good stats that people that are watching this can look up. But right now, we're facing a really huge problem, not just in this country, but also worldwide. 1 in 10 people have type 2 diabetes in America. That's 10%. Okay, we have another 10 to 20% that are pre-diabetic or undiagnosed as type 2 diabetic.
Right.
So that is basically, we have a 30% of our population is obese, and basically 30% of our population is pre-diabetic or diabetic already. So that's 1 in 3 to 1 in 5 people walking around us right now. I mean, people we love, people that we work with. I mean, just it's staggering. So we also spend $14,000 a year per diabetic. That's the average cost of a diabetic, the cost that we spend for that medically. So you think about that. That's about $1,200, $1,100 a month that we are paying for one type 2 diabetic. Does that type 2 diabetic pay that $1,100 a month?
No,
Absolutely not.
no.
So where is that coming from? Well, it's subsidizing. We are subsidizing that payment. So now everyone can know why, a part of why, that our healthcare costs are so expensive and why we are paying what we're paying. Yeah, so it's unbelievable. So that's why we have such a problem.
Yeah, the subsidizing part is a whole nother topic we can get into. But for sure, I want people to completely understand, what exactly, could you give a brief rundown of just so that people can completely understand what insulin is and what insulin resistance is?
Absolutely. So I made a slide just for this. So I'm going to pull this up here real quick. Insulin resistance is actually, insulin is a hormone produced by the pancreas. It's designed to regulate blood sugar. Insulin shuttles glucose into muscle cells, liver cells, and fat cells, okay? So this diagram here, we have the picture. Insulin is the key that unlocks the cell for blood sugar to enter into the cell, okay? When we have constantly high blood sugar from a high carbohydrate diet or the standard American diet that's also high carb and high fat, that insulin is very high all the time. So just like it's kind of just like any other tolerance building thing of the body or mechanism of the body, we take too much ibuprofen, we need to take more because we've built a tolerance to it. If we drink too much alcohol, you have to drink more to get the same effect because you've built a tolerance to it. Sugar is no different. All these things are no different. Neither is insulin. So now we have to have more insulin and more insulin to unlock the key to the cell. So if it takes more insulin and the beta cells in the pancreas just aren't pumping it out, then we don't have anything to shuttle that glucose into the cell, and it starts becoming, the cell becomes insulin resistant, and then the blood sugar has nowhere to go and it hangs around in the bloodstream. And that is diabetes. And that's why diabetics develop so many problems that correlate with high blood sugar, because that blood sugar has nowhere to go. What do you think neuropathy is? Neuropathy is the blood sugar pooling and sitting in the eyes and the feet. That's why we see amputations. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible disease that has been so prevalent. And guess what? It's not this huge, it's not like cancer. It's not this, sometimes genetic component. I mean, the majority of it is from our dietary approach. So that's why it's so important to understand how this works and how insulin resistance happens, so we can take the right steps dietary wise to fix it or to reverse it.
Right. Yeah. And a couple points I wanted to touch on too is how when you mentioned the sugar in the bloodstream, diabetes mellitus actually means sweet urine. So that there's so much sugar in the body, it's found mostly in the urine, and that's where it comes from too. But also, like, there is such a good indication of insulin resistance in the terms of when you think of an M&M. Okay, so M&Ms give us insulin resistance, but they're also, think of an M&M, the cell of every part of your body now has a hard, crusty outer layer. And that's how the insulin can't get in. It's like an M&M, that hard, crusty shell with the soft center that the insulin's not getting in. And I think people don't realize how, when you said this is a terrible, terrible disease, I think it's undermined because it's becoming so mainstream to go to your doctor and hear them say, yeah, so you're diabetic or pre-diabetic, and you need to understand that this is the metformin you're going to have to take now. And everybody's like, oh, okay, I'll just take that pill and I'll be fine. And they go back to their doctor, oh, my A1C went up. Oh, okay, well, I need more insulin. Oh, okay, I'll do that. Versus this is a terrible, life-threatening disease and a killer. And instead of just accepting your lot in life as having this, you can actually reverse this and not have it. Is that right?
Absolutely. So that's one of the things that I have not only seen in my own practice with my personal training clients and my nutritional clients, but I've seen it in our own family and people I love. So, for instance, there's a lot of people who get put on a blood sugar lowering medication. I had one client come to me. He said, I want to start personal training because my doctor told me I needed to, and losing weight would help that. Didn't have a clue about the disease, what was even going on in his body. So I said, okay, I'll only work with you if you will agree to do a low carbohydrate diet. And he said, absolutely, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. I said, okay, we'll do it. I said, but you have to abide by the diet, because we can do all the training you want to do, and if you don't lower your insulin and lower your blood sugar, we are stuck, and you're going to be taking medication for the rest of your life, and you're going to be dealing with complications for the rest of your life. However, if you change your dietary habits by lowering your blood sugar and lowering your insulin, and I'll show you the foods to eat, then you don't have to take this medication. You'll lose a ton of weight. Your energy will go through the roof. And that is exactly what he did and exactly what happened. So this is just one case of many, okay? So you can get online and read story after story of people coming off of their type 2 diabetes medications, and all doing it just by what they ate and never taking it again. Right. So although the American Diabetes Association is saying that this is a disease that's progressive and uncurable, that is not an accurate statement. So I challenge everyone out there that's watching this that may have type 2 diabetes or prediabetes or someone they love with type 2 diabetes, do your homework. Look at this stuff, because it's fascinating that this isn't a uncurable progressive disease. It actually can be reversed.
Yeah, absolutely. And how can you just talk briefly, let the viewers and the listeners know, how does one develop insulin resistance? Because like you said, there's type 2 diabetes, there's pre-diabetes, and then there's insulin resistance. And that's kind of the first step towards that life-threatening syndrome, if you will. I see it more as a syndrome than a disease, because it's like you. I don't see it as something that a disease feels a little bit more like lifelong, versus a syndrome's like, well, we can change this. You just have this syndrome that we need to get rid of your symptoms by choosing the right kind of protocol.
Absolutely. So I totally agree. Syndrome sounds so much more accurate to me. So insulin resistance is developed over time, just like I showed that slide earlier, and we talked about how high levels of insulin lead to the cell becoming resistant to insulin. Well, that basically is the standard American diet is what's causing this. You have a whole lot of carbohydrates, okay, from grains, pasta, chips, crackers, sweets, pies, brownies, cookies, all, these sugary drinks, the juices, the sodas, all these things create a massive amount of blood sugar spikes. So blood sugar in the blood is toxic. We know that. That's why we have neuropathy and these diabetic conditions that are so bad. So insulin was designed to strip that blood sugar out of the bloodstream and put it where it needs to go. That's either in muscles, liver, or fat cells as storage. Okay, so to give you an example, the most prevalent thing in diabetes is sugar and fructose. When you mix these two together, the liver cannot process fructose. So high fructose corn syrup is in everything that we produce as a country. I mean, almost everything. Ketchup, mustard.
Yes, barbecue.
I mean,
everything, yes.
It's incredible. It's incredible. So you take sugar and you take fructose, and it has to go through the liver to get into the cells, okay? So that fructose does not get broken down by the liver. And they say like agave nectar, this is a diabetic friendly sweetener, and it's all fructose. Well, guess where that fructose goes? If the liver can't process it in, and it's a slow digesting sugar, well, you know why it's slow digesting? Because the liver can't process that through into glucose. So then you know what it does? It stores as fat on the liver. Now you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease if you have this excessive fructose consumption that goes through the roof. So as your liver becomes more fatty, so does your pancreas. So now you're slowing down by the amount of fat you have around your internal organs. You're slowing down their function, which the liver is designed to detox and the pancreas is designed to create insulin. So you're slowing down your detox and you're slowing down your pancreas' ability to create insulin.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that people don't realize too, another job of the liver is body fat regulation. Like it's designed to help you burn stored body fat. And if it's so bogged down with, like you said, fatty masses from non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and it's bombarded with sugar each and every waking minute of the day, it cannot do its job of body fat regulation. And therein lies why obesity and type 2 diabetes are on the rise. There's your sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I'm glad you mentioned fruit and fruit juices too, because there are seemingly healthy things that people are doing that they would think, well, I don't eat all of those candies and brownies and donuts that you mentioned. I eat, gluten-free bread and granola and, protein bars that are chocked full of healthy grains and things like that. Well, all of that, anything that you flip over that package and it says, 5 grams of carbohydrates or 5 grams of sugar, I mean, that's a teaspoon of sugar right there. If it says 5 grams of sugar, that's 1 teaspoon. What if you have something that says like 40 grams of sugar? I mean, can you see how that would add up?
So I'm looking at a study right now on the computer that's by PubMed, which is a national database of scientific literature for doctors and scientists to put their studies on. And there's a whole thing. So this is, again, do your homework, folks. Carbohydrate intake and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, fructose as a weapon of mass destruction. That's the title of the study. So, and there's multiple studies just like this confirming that high fructose corn syrup and fructose are actually the start of fatty liver disease, and that's the main culprit behind it. So this standard American diet with the high consumptions of carbohydrates mixed with the high consumption of high fructose corn syrup that's in all the sodas and drinks and juices and all this other stuff. And then you combine that with the trans fats and all the fatty stuff like pizza and burgers and fries and all this fast food type stuff. You have a recipe, just like this article is saying, a weapon of mass destruction. Then that's why you see the prevalence that we have of 30% of our country is obese, and dealing with these horrible, tragic, heartbreaking problems that are avoidable if we ate whole foods, we ate foods that came from our earth and our planet.
Yes, absolutely. And the weapon of mass destruction is on ourselves. It's not on, it's not on the world, on the earth itself. We're doing this to ourselves. I was in a coffee shop and I heard a lady say, oh, my doctor says I just was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, but he says I can't have sugar or anything, but I'm still going to get the caramel macchiato. And I told him, I'm like, you're killing me here. I can't have all this sugar. And I wanted to run up to her and go, no, you're killing you here. Like, that you are making right now is the reason why you're in the position that you're in. No one has done this to you, but being armed with the right accurate knowledge, you can empower yourself to reverse this. Like, you don't have to live with this. You don't have to manage it and continue to go back to the doctor and have him say, oh, let's put you on more insulin, and let's, keep eating the way you're eating. We'll just up your metformin. We'll give you this new drug to try. Well, the definition of insanity, if you remember, is keep doing the same thing you've always done and get the same results. But what about trying something different? So let's say one of your clients came up to you and said, I want the nutshell version of what I should do today to start to reverse my type 2 diabetes.
So if I could give anything of a takeaway for people who are wondering, okay, what do I hear you, what do I do next? Learn how to lower your blood sugar, and which will lower your insulin, and learn how to do that through the foods you eat. Mm-hmm. So again, I mean, I know I'm saying it again, do your homework on what foods raise blood sugar, high carbohydrate foods, high carbohydrate drinks, sugar-laden foods, sugar-laden drinks. So learn what these things are and avoid them like the plague, because they are the culprit. So whether you're type 2 diabetic already, or whether you're like, I just want to prevent type 2 diabetes. Maybe it runs in your family.
Absolutely.
Um, maybe it's just prevalent in your life, and you want to make sure that you stay away from this, because we want to lower insulin, and if we can lower insulin, then we can have all these good things happen, which your body will start going after its own body fat as fuel.
Yay.
Yay, that's what everybody wants. They want to burn fat, right? How do we mobilize body fat? We lower insulin enough that when it gets below a certain level, it signals the body to start pulling triglycerides out of the cells and out of the blood and convert them into ready fuel.
Mhm.
So that would be my one takeaway for everybody: is learn how and what things lower the blood sugar, and you can eat fantastic savory meals on a low carb ketogenic lifestyle. It doesn't have to be full keto. You can still have some squashes and sweet potatoes and these beautiful foods that I believe our God created for us to eat. And you can enjoy those things with nice savory vegetables, nice healthy protein sources, no matter what that may be for you as an individual. But that would be my big takeaway: is manage your blood sugar, lower your insulin, and burn more fat.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's a great place to start, is the awareness factor of just becoming aware of what foods are causing this reaction. If they do start to take their blood glucose testing after they find out they might have some prediabetes or something, they just get a glucose monitor and start testing certain things after they eat and see, oh, well, that really went up. Maybe chips and salsa isn't the best option for me. Maybe I could switch to veggies and guacamole or something like that versus chips and salsa, and maybe cutting out the soda and replacing it with sparkling mineral water, something like that, to where they're making shifts, still eating things that they love, like you mentioned, but also doing it in a way, like you said, is just to start with awareness. And then next is to really hone in on those foods and take action with regards to maybe hiring someone like yourself or myself to help them further develop a plan that really resonates with them, going through like a healing protocol for a time, maybe eliminating. That's what ketogenic is so good for too, is creating that insulin resistance cell to heal, and then you can reintroduce carbohydrates again in small portions after that to still give you those foods you love, but in a healing way. So I think they should know they can find you at musclesandveggies.com, and on Facebook, Muscles and Veggies Fitness, and our YouTube channel obviously is what? Muscles and Veggies
Fitness.
Fitness, yes. And then getfitwithjodelle.com. Also, we're on iTunes. If you're hearing it on iTunes now, share this with your friends. And so thank you for joining us. And Zach, thanks for the great information. I'm excited to do an upcoming class with you on insulin resistance as well.
Thank you very much. Hope everybody enjoys, and I hope they do their homework. Thanks
Yeah,
for listening.
take it to heart, become aware, and have a great day.